Hi guys, Pete the Wargamer here, back with another painting tutorial. In this video, I'll be showing you how to paint the Lannisters from the Song of Ice and Fire miniatures game, and for this task, I'll be using the Army Painter range of paints. Before we can begin to paint our miniatures, we first of all need to prime them to ensure that the later layers of paint adhere to the miniature's surface properly. I've opted for a grey primer as this is a fairly neutral colour that you could easily build up from. However, feel free to use your own preference. To start things off, we'll be painting the crimson cloth of this Lannister Guardsman as well as his shield, and to do this we'll be using Vampire Red. When it comes to base coats, I like to thin down my mixture with a little water and apply at least 2 thin coats of paint to ensure a good even coverage. I find that using about half as much water as paint works well. Once your paint has been sufficiently thinned, you can then apply it to the tabard, shield front and plume of the helmet. As this is our first step, don't worry too much about overspilling onto other parts of the miniature just yet. To paint the black leather parts of the miniature, which include the boots and gloves, I'll be using Necromancer Cloak. You may notice that this is a very dark grey paint rather than black, which is important as when we apply a dark wash later on, we need to be able to see some variance of shade between the recesses and the raised sections. To paint the leather belt, pouch, scabbard and straps, we'll be using Dirt Spatter. For the wood on the inside of the shield, we will next use Oak Brown. Take care not to overspill at this stage as some parts may be tricky to reach. Next, we'll be painting the armour of our Lannister Guardsmen along with any other silver metallic areas. For this task, we'll be using gunmetal. Continuing with the metallic paints, we will then be tackling the crossguard of the sword, the line iconography and the gold edging of the armour and tunic. For these areas, we'll be using Greedy Gold. Once you have completed this step, be sure to clean out your brushes and water pot thoroughly to avoid any cross-contamination of metal flakes to your other paints. The final base coat is for the skin, and this will be base coated using Kobold Skin. We've left this last step until last, as if we were to paint this first and then overspilled with the metallic paint, it would be much harder to correct. Our next few steps will involve applying washes to our miniature. These washes will flow into the recessed areas, helping to create shading and adding depth. The first wash to use is Strong Tone. However, before applying it to your miniature, we first want to thin it down in order to reduce the strength of the wash. I'm going to mix in a little Quickshade mixing medium to my wash in roughly equal parts wash to medium. You could instead use water, but medium will create a smoother looking transition between the darker and lighter areas. With the wash thinned, you can then apply it to the entirety of the red, brown and gold areas of the miniature. Following the same steps as before, we will then be applying a wash of dark tone to the black and silver metallic parts of the miniature. To finish off, you'll want to apply a wash of thinned flesh wash to the skin. With our washes completed, we can now turn our attention to highlights. These thin lines of paint applied along the raised edges of the miniature will really help to enhance its level of detail. We'll be starting off using pure red to pick out the raised edges of the red areas. To do this, take a brush with a fine point and dip it in some slightly watered down paint. Then gently drag the brush along the raised edges, creating a thin line of lighter coloured paint. For the black leather areas, apply an edge highlight of Castle Grey. Next, pick out the raised edges of the brown leather straps using Monster Brown. To bring out some of those facial details, you will once again want to use Kobold Skin. However, this time, we will focus our attention to the cheekbones and the bridge of the nose. And finally, to highlight the edges of the silver metallic and gold parts of the miniature, we'll be using Shining Silver. And here we have the completed Lannister Guardsman. I finished things off by varnishing the miniature before creating a simple basing scheme using some textured paints. Now, whilst I focus on a guardsman for this video, you could apply the same colours and techniques to any of your Lannister foot soldiers. You can find a full list of all the paints that I've used in this tutorial in the description below, along with any other equipment that I've used to create this video, such as my everlasting wet palette. If you enjoyed this video, do let me know in the comments below, and if you haven't done so already, be sure to check out my Patreon page if you would like to support me in making these videos. If you have any questions or would just like to chat with others who enjoy my channel, I've set up a Discord server which you can find a link to in the description below. So the only thing left to say is, thanks for watching and goodbye.